email? What does it mean?
Communication is the imparting or exchanging of information or news.
The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place.
Conversation is the oral exchange of sentiments, observations, opinions, or ideas.
Forbes Books Radio presents The Conversation with Clinton M. Padgett.
Welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with Indi Young, researcher, writer, and educator known for her work on deep listening and human cognition. We pick up our discussion with me asking Indi about the importance of understanding someone's purpose and their guiding principles. I think another thing that you tended to focus on in the book was the importance of understanding people's purposes and their guiding principles. And I'm wondering, how can, as we're doing the interviews, how can we shift from that demographic kind of thinking to more purpose-driven engagement inside the teams?
Yeah. So, purpose. A lot of people have, I don't know if in your world you run across jobs to be done. Yeah. And they call it a job, right? A purpose, a goal, an intention. I use purpose. I use intention, mainly because I just want that envelope to be stretchier, because a lot of the things that I study are not things that have an end. Okay.
Right.
So I want to name them something other than a goal. I've reached my goal. That's the only reason. And English is not stretchy enough to come up with a really good word for it. So I've used purpose a lot. And the idea is that we want to ask somebody about a larger thing, not about the use of a solution. They will be using a lot of solutions types. One of the things that's interesting is to recognize, at least in the tech world, I think people by default imagine the solution is something digital.
Sure.
Right? Okay. And in the real world, there's also mechanical solutions. There's also manual solutions. There's also memory solutions, like remembering about something that you learned in this course or remembering what your best friend told you. There's also social solutions where you go and talk to your best friend about a problem. Right? You're just like, hashing it out. It's like what your wife was trying to do. She just needed to hash it out. And so the idea that we're trying to collapse humanity into this little we're only going to interact with each other through these digital things, and there's no manual to it. There's no beautiful, long-lasting 1920s car that you can still drive today because it's been built to last. Right. How is it that we forget about all that history? How is it that we forget that a human is a social creature? Even if we're an introvert, I'm a very introverted introvert, but I'm still a social creature.
Right.
Okay. So we are social creatures that are always aware of the others. Sometimes our awareness is only like, what do they think of me? What do they think of me? Sometimes our awareness of the other is like, how can I manipulate them? Sometimes it's, hey, how can I beat them in a competition, right? It's like there's more positives too, but I'm thinking in business. In business, the teams that I work on are all about how can I collaborate? How can I add? How can I bring something new? How can I tie two pieces? People love doing this, tie two ideas together. And you're like, oh, wow, that's awesome. So I do 2 collaborative working sessions a week for 2 hours with my team. And it's just by the end of it, we are so on fire because we work together really well. We collaborate really well. We're not exhausted after this. We've built something new. We've gone in new directions. It's really interesting. There's this one guy who's like, this has been really interesting. That's always his phrase. And he's on fire and super happy. And it's really late for him because he's so many time zones away. But anyway, the idea is that what we're interested in doing when we are working with others is recognize that they are a part of a larger thing. They have life going on at home as well. They have a brother who might have leukemia. They have a pet who might have died or who's sick. There's a ton of other things. And it's not like we're expected to kind of focus on work when we're at work, but it's not like we can drop all of that. That's going to be back there in our experience. I have this image in the book. It's a big Asian dragon, long, lithe, sinuous body with kind of the big head with the tendrils and everything coming off of it. The head is where we focus. But that whole body is there, and that whole body is all the experiences that person has had in their life. Mm-hmm. You can't cut the head off the dragon. It won't survive.
Right.
Okay. So at work, we're fully dragon. Our whole bodies are there. And to recognize that that's coming along with the face, which is our reality, our in the now kind of moment. It's that behavior, the words, the thinking, the decisions that they make are all being influenced by the rest of the body coming in. So when we just okay, as a manager, I can accept that. Now I can look at Jonathan and I really understand where he's coming from. I've been listening to him, every 2 weeks for 20 minutes, and I really understand him. And Jonathan's probably doing the same thing with you, the manager. I encourage everybody to listen with their managers. like your friend Keith Ferrazzi, never eat lunch alone. Seriously. Yeah. I've been saying that for years. So the idea is if you as an organization or you as a team want to actually accomplish some of the interesting, neat things that you could accomplish, then you need to understand each other. Right? Now, if you are working at H&M on a cashier, maybe it's a little different, but your behavior is still going to be influenced by the whole rest of the dragon's body. And I think this kind of listening would help a manager of the cashiers at H&M.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. It's about understanding that person. Got it.
Yeah.
You mentioned China and some other countries, and I'm wondering, does a country-specific culture play a role? Because I know in some of the studies that I've been involved with on some of the projects I work on, there are certain cultures you can go to, and they always rate everything highly. There's not a lot of variability. Mm-hmm. If it's a 10-point scale, maybe they go between 8 and 9, and nobody gets a 10, nobody gets less than an 8. So. Yeah. Does that give confusing results? Yeah,
mostly what's happening is in the U.S., we are very interested in people's opinions and preferences. And here's where I can pull that bookmark. I want to give you a little visual, and that is the layers of a topic. So imagine a person sitting down at a table across from you. You're going to listen to that person. That person's going to put a bunch of topics out on the table. They're going to mention a topic. And I use the metaphor of a little spherical candy that has layers. You might know it as a jawbreaker. Mm-hmm. That is what a topic is. So a person's going to take this topic, put it on the table, and talk about it. Now, normally, especially in U.S. culture, we're going to talk about the facts of that topic. We're going to explain that topic. We're going to set the scene of that topic. We're going to explain how it works. And then we're going to give our opinion about it or our preference about it. And we're going to stop there. And there are more layers in that topic. And the layers, the core of the topic, that is what we're after. The core of the topic is their interior cognition. It's the inner thinking, it's the emotional reactions, and it's the personal rules. And by the way, personal rules is what I'm using to mean guiding principles these days, because guiding principles is a harder word to wrap your head around. Personal rule is a little bit easier. So those 3 things are at the core of each of those topics. So in a listening session, what we're trying to do is keep track of what layer we're at. Have we only gotten to the preferences layer? So when you see this stuff happening and people are rating things highly, it's because in that culture, opinions are not shared as much as they are here. Opinions are not as worthy as they are here. And they have no reason. We're not asking them for anything deeper than the opinion. And so there's nowhere for them to put their thinking. Now, when I do a listening session, and I've done them like all over different cultures, and other people have done them within their own other cultures, it works so much better because we're asking deeper than that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. What went through
Makes
your
sense.
mind? Yeah, exactly. And at that point, people can talk about what went through my mind, and maybe they'll bring up an opinion, but it's less likely in some cultures that they'll bring up opinions. It'll be more like, the explanation of what, my emotional reaction was to this thing. And then how I worked around that emotional reaction, and then how I figured my way through to making a decision, that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that sometimes a listening session can happen via text, and that ties into one of my next questions. In the book, you said we depend on body language, tone of voice, and the other person's reaction to our input to let us know where we should take the conversation next. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, if you're doing text-based listening sessions, you tend to lose a lot of that, don't you?
So that's an or in that sentence, not an and.
Okay.
I normally do my listening sessions without visual. I either do them audibly. If we use Zoom, we don't turn on cameras. Sometimes we do turn on cameras. Often I'll just do it by phone. I do them in person, but I will always do one by phone or by Zoom first, so that we can get a sense of each other's minds. I do this because, and this kind of gets back to that demographics thing, we are good at recognizing patterns. And if you see somebody who's wearing headphones, and your pattern is that everybody who's wearing headphones is trying to drown out the rest of the world, and therefore they're probably not going to be open, right? That's your assumption about this person who has headphones on. Okay. If I see that you're wearing headphones, and that is going to go through my head because I can't stop it, right? The other part is that we're really good at recognizing patterns and acting quickly on them. So it's like, It's already gone through my mind that you're not going to be very interested in giving me answers. I'm like, no, let's leave this alone. And so if I don't see that you have headphones on, maybe that won't run through my mind, and I won't have that in the back of my mind about you not being willing to give me answers. Okay. Yeah. This goes for other kinds of demographics as well. You see somebody who's, got spinach between their teeth, right? That is not a demographic, but it would be a fun one.
Wait, let me see. Do I? Hold on. Is she trying to tell me something?
Exactly. You see somebody who is a certain shape, a certain gender, or representing in a certain way. That reaction is going to go through your mind. You can't stop it. And then you have to deal the rest of the time with, undoing that reaction that happened in your mind, or trying to close it off, close the door. So
it's a way of filtering out our biases, basically, taking some of that off the table. Not judging the book by the cover. Okay.
Yeah. And exactly, this is not going to happen between a manager and an employee. But I mean, there's maybe it would work really well when you're interviewing people for jobs. This actually was something that happened in symphonies not too long ago, like in the 70s. They used to do auditions, and they would not hire the females because it was mostly males playing in the symphony. So they put up a screen, and they could still hear when heels came, then they thought, oh, it's a female. So they put in a carpet and a screen, and all of a sudden, half the symphony is women.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Right?
The hidden biases.
Yeah, exactly. We can't stop them. It's not like we're supposed to do penance because we've had this. Whatever, the thought's going to happen. Is there a way that I can make it so that I'm a little bit more clean and open-minded to understand your mind?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I have a chapter in the book that's about safety. And safety for the other person, making a safe space, but also safety for yourself. And this kind of plays into that. And I teach people how to set up thresholds and what reactions you should have if someone goes past the threshold and that kind of a thing. So, yeah, there's there's a lot to it. So the text thing, sometimes it's hard for people to speak a bunch of sentences aloud to another person in a row, but they have minds, and I'm interested in their mind, and they've got lots of interesting thoughts. So let's do this in a way that works for them. I always do, before I do this formally, like if I'm doing a research study, I always have an intro session with everybody, each person individually. I ask them, some questions to make sure that they've done a lot of thinking about it, but I also tell them, like, what is the study about? How is it going to work? It's going to be you telling me stories about, your landscape. Are you up for that? Right. How can I tell you more about me so you can go and, do a little research and see if you want to trust me?
Gotcha. That's funny because no, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, then we have the listening session a couple days later.
It's funny because for me, I'm very much a people person. And so my first always go to is in person. I want to see you, I want to put a name with a face, and I want to see, especially if I'm doing a planning session for my day job, I want to know, are you truly engaged? Are you looking at your phone? Are you distracted? Right. And that's more visual cues from body language than anything else. So, so it's interesting.
Yeah. When you're doing those planning sessions, are they one-on-one?
No, they're in a group.
Yeah, this does not. So listening deeply does not work in a group at all, period.
Makes sense. Yeah, you said that earlier.
Yeah. So when you're doing something one-on-one, though, maybe it works better for you to be visual, right? Or in person. It doesn't matter. But pay attention to what would be good for the other person.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
In that intro session, it can really help build trust. If you're asking them these questions in the intro session, like, what style of interacting is going to work for you the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have about 20 left. We're not going to go through them all. Let me break it down to about 5. As I told you in my pre-session, I'm an engineer, and the thought of showing up with not enough questions would just freak me out. So I always have way too many questions, but I got 5 left that I really want to get to.
Okay.
What do you hope people take away from time to listen, and that could shift how they show up for their teams?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really hope is the recognition that we all have amazing minds. And we do more than just interact with the digital. We are so interconnected. We're capable of a lot. And a lot of distraction too. But it's really interesting. People are interesting. They're not necessarily, even because as an introvert, oh my God, growing up, I did not want to interact with people. And then just realizing that, I've got a mind. I wonder if they have minds like this. This is kind of, okay, maybe a little interesting. And I can get at it through, so the way the listening session works is so structured, but so open that it's a way to discover another person's mind without putting yourself in danger, so to speak, right? It's definitely meant for engineers, because I was an engineer when I made it. But it's also very much a way of helping people feel seen. Now, I just saw a talk by Alison Puch, who wrote a book whose name I'll have to look up for you. But she's a psychologist, and she was being interviewed in this talk about the crisis of loneliness. She says, we're in a crisis of loneliness. She says, it's not a crisis of loneliness. It's a crisis of depersonalization. And I'm like, ? Type in, define depersonalization into my browser as I'm watching this, right? But her very next sentence defined it. She says, we are not feeling seen. And it seems like more and more people are not feeling seen. Right. Society in the way society functions, community in the way community functions, family in the way family functions is shifting. Not for everyone, but it is shifting. And in big data, it means there's a lot more people who are not feeling seen. And that's another thing that I want people to take out of this, is that this is a way for people to feel seen. It is a method, very structured method for your organization to use to help the people your organization hopes to support feel seen. Now, if your organization is making enterprise software, who are those people that need to feel seen? There's a bunch of different sets of those people, and we can go through in a structured way and understand what's going through their minds and what are the thinking styles that they might put on as a hat. And when we do that, we're able to see this landscape of opportunities, see where the gaps are, understand we're doing really well. There's spark lines we put underneath these mental model skylines where we're measuring how well each of these solutions and features works for each of the thinking styles under each of the towers. And we can go we're doing a great job in this little section of towers for two of the thinking styles, but one of the thinking styles is completely having a bad time. I use a harms scale there to explain it. Yeah. There are images of this on my website, indiyoung.com, under the strategy page. So people can go see. Mm-hmm.
Well, as you were talking about, I have a mind. I wonder if they have a mind. I was reminded I recently interviewed Thomas Erickson, who wrote a book called Surrounded by Idiots. So you might have found that when you explore their minds, you're surrounded by idiots. So maybe it's good to be an introvert.
Yeah. Even idiots have minds.
They do.
It's your opinion about them that makes the word idiot come up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, are there any leadership principles that speak to you personally and guide your day-to-day behaviors?
Ooh, leadership principles. That seems like, a category that I should have some thinking under. I definitely have thinking under, but I don't have that category name. One of the things that I do when I'm working with my teams is to make sure everyone's feeling heard, or try to make sure everyone's feeling heard. When we're working in a group, it's much different than doing a listening session. Mm-hmm. We do a lot. Our group knows each other well enough now that we joke with each other all the time. We were doing fart jokes the other day. Really? But, it was all in support of the cause of what we were trying to get done.
I don't think I want to know what you're trying to get done, but we'll go.
Yeah, no, actually what I'm trying to get done is build the next course for thinking styles.
Okay.
And what we were doing we went through two completely different data sets to make examples for the course and the practice group. And what we were doing then was building a world, like a fictitious organization that did this research. Who are they? What world do they live in? And it's actually a venue that four people had bought together with their retirement funds. And we were trying to name it, and somehow I know. We wanted to make sure that the venue was not just a music venue. It used to be a music venue. It has a history of being a music venue, and we wanted to embrace new things. And someone brought up the idea of a place, because in our data, we had a lot of people bringing kids, and the kids not having a great time. And we wanted to have a place where kids might come and have a great time. It would be a much shorter kind of event, but it would also have fart in the name.
Each kid can get one of those little fart guns. That'd be great.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Eat chocolate, and when you can't fall asleep, read a book.
We'll take it.
There we go.
Speaking of books, what's the best book or article you've read recently? What was the key takeaway?
That Allison Pooh thing. It was it was really good. That was interesting. I read a lot of these things, so I often will pull them together into an essay and put it in my newsletter. So my newsletter gets posted on Medium under Inclusive Software. So you can go look me up there and sign up for my newsletter on my website.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, my last question is tongue in cheek, but we kind of alluded to it at the very beginning, and I want to tie and bow on it. So, do we need you anymore? Doesn't AI just replace all this?
Right. So,
and I bring this up because on your LinkedIn profile, you state that all your posts are human generated with no use of AI.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to talk about this.
Josh Lamar is one of the people leading the charge to get AI transparency out there. So it starts with, if you're creating something, you say where on the spectrum AI played a part. One end of the spectrum is it didn't play a part at all, because I haven't figured out what it could do for me, because I love writing. The other spectrum, it did it all. And then there's other points in the spectrum. And anyone listening to this, if you're creating something, like even if it's just a memo you sent out, you could put something at the bottom that says, AI helped me figure out that one sentence or something, right? That kind of a thing. That's what he means, is to get it out there, because one of the things that there's a lot of talk about this crisis of critical thinking. And of course, if you use the word critical, it's going to send some people off the scale, right? All it means is like thinking it through. Okay, let's just call it thinking it through. And the crisis is that, with AI, you can just ask it a question, it gives you the answer. And not most of the time, maybe a third of the time, the answer is incorrect. Yeah. And you go try to implement what that AI answer was, and you discover the incorrectness. The same thing happens in transcripts, right? So one of the things is that if we use AI more like a thought sparring partner, that was the way that someone put it in a talk at Epic last week, a thought sparring partner. Now, I'm not a violent person, and I don't like sparring. I also don't. So it might not be the phrase I use, but using it like your thought partner. It's like, I'm going to sort of put things out there that are things for us to explore together. And I want you to ask me other questions about it, not give me answers. I want you to ask me other questions about it. That is a different way of using AI that I think could probably help a lot of people. I haven't found it myself very useful, but there's this whole other area. You know how I said that there's the research that happens on product that is very tactical. It's where they go do 7 interviews in one day. I don't even know why they bother, because the stuff that comes out of it is not necessarily useful. It's just, that's how it's done, right? They're not doing any deep thinking or thinking it through of what research to do to come up with information that you need or knowledge that you hope to grow internally. And so those AIs that come along and they're like, hey, there's artificial users, you can ask them anything, or hey, give us your transcripts, we'll tell you what the insights are. I've done that. It doesn't work. So the way that I do data synthesis with qualitative data. So there's a lot here, so sorry for the long answer, but one of the things a lot of orgs think is that qualitative data is the subjective end of data and quantitative data is the empirical end of data. And that's not true. And quant data is one whole spectrum with a subjective end and an empirical end. There's a lot of poorly done quant out there, which is subjective. Qualitative data is its own spectrum with a subjective end and an empirical end. The work that I do, the work that ethnographers do, is at the empirical end. Qual data measures patterns, right? So it's all about patterns. Quant data measures amounts of things or how much of things, like how much does it weigh or something. So with the qual, there's a lot of subjective research out there where people are not framing it correctly. They're not thinking it through and understanding what knowledge they need out of it. And they're maybe choosing the wrong method because it's just, that's how it's done. That's the process. We do that next. And you have to have the answer in 3 days. And so that's why these AIs have come out. They're like, ooh, greedy. We're going to have lots of customers. And it's not working because it's giving them a bunch of whatever. Okay. So qualitative empirical qualitative data synthesis. There's a lot of ways to do it. There's things called thematic analysis. There's things called grounded theory. There's something called coding. What I do is emergent data synthesis. So what I'm trying to do is let those people's ways of thinking form their own categories, their own groups. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know what it's going to be. It's not a category that I'd say like, oh, here they're being hesitant, and hesitant is a category, right? No, right. I'm not going to do that. It's their focus of mental attention. So it's never going to come out like hesitant. It's going to be, wonder whether I should go confront the driver of this other car. And there might be other people who are like, wonder if I should go up and tell that guy who ran through the red light, who's parked at that house, that he ran through a red light, right? Those are both the same focus of mental attention, completely different contexts, right?
I think that AI is also, it's just everybody wants AI now, right? So everybody says, oh, my new service provides AI, and it doesn't really. It's the same old stuff, but they've added AI to the name so they can charge more and do more and get more eyeballs on it.
Exactly. And I think it's really up to us to help educate our directors who are getting like sort of sold the snake oil. There's a great book called AI Snake Oil that talks about kind of the different types of AI. It's by some really serious thinkers, and I highly recommend that. But I think our directors are getting bamboozled, right? Mm-hmm. And our directors are also being told in modern capitalism that we want these things faster and faster and faster and faster.
That's the key.
Yeah. And when you ask, well, why do we need to make it faster? The answer is like, you don't care about risk of doing it wrong? You think everything that you do really fast is going to turn out into fabulous profit? Not my experience.
No, exactly. That's definitely not.
So there are ways to de-risk the direction you're going. And that's what listening deeply is about. That's what emergent qualitative data synthesis is about.
I think that's a great way to end it. So, Indi, thank you so much. You've been great. I really appreciate your time today. And remind us of the websites you were just mentioning about people can reach out to you.
Yeah, indiyoung.com. So it's INDI and YOUNG. And then also on medium.com, I'm inclusive software, or you can look for Indi Young there. And you'll find on the website a page that's called Strategy. You'll also find the newsletter link at the footer of almost every page. There's a ton of stuff on my website. The training is there too. There on the method page, there's this really fun illustration, like an I Spy illustration. And there's also a new page there about thinking styles, if anybody's interested.
And I can say from experience, you're fairly prolific on LinkedIn. I've seen quite a bit of blogs and posts on LinkedIn as well. So, Indi, thank you so much for the conversation today.
Thank you, Clint. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to The Conversation. To find out more about Clint, go to clintonmpaget.com and pick up Clint's book, How Teams Triumph, Managing by Commitment, at Amazon. The Conversation with Clinton M. Paget is a production of Forbes Books.